In the bustling city of Seoul, South Korea, there's a young woman named Shin Rumi. She's the proud owner of a super popular fried chicken restaurant, even though she didn't go to college. Rumi wanted to help her mom, especially after her dad left them when she was little. But trouble starts brewing when a big company called Taesan, run by some not so nice people, decides to buy all the land in the neighborhood. They want to knock down all the small shops, including Rumi's, to put up a fancy mall for tourists. And here's the bad part, they don't plan on paying the small business owners a cent. One night, things take a scary turn. Some tough guys hired by Tae-san show up at Rumi's place. They barge in and drag her out. Her brave mom tries to step in, but even she gets stopped from helping. So, what does Rumi's mom do? She hops in her van and drives right through those thugs to protect her daughter. Rumi's brave mom tries to rescue her but ends up hurt. She hits her head and passes out, which scares off the bad guys. Thankfully, neighbors rush in to help Rumi and her mom. They rush them both to the hospital, but tragically, Rumi's mom doesn't make it. It's heart-wrenching, Rumi cries, and it's just so sad. Then, something really unexpected happens. A meteor lands nearby, making the local spring water all special and charged up with some sort of special energy. The very next day, Rumi's dad, Shin Sok-han, swings by that spot and unknowingly drinks that funky-tasting water. He heads to his job at the bank, where he's a security guard. He chats with the cleaning lady, and kinda shockingly, he admits to swiping coffee and even toilet paper from the bank's waiting room. He blames his upset stomach on that strange-tasting spring water. Sok-han's day takes a rough turn after his shift. He gets a scolding from his coworker for always being late, but he brushes it off, calling the guy a nag. Then, he spots the cleaning lady getting in trouble for swiping all those coffee packets she got caught with. Sneakily, Sok-han acts like he doesn't notice and walks away, thinking she was pretty silly for grabbing so many at once, making it obvious. Later that evening, he's just chilling at a corner store, munching on a snack when suddenly, his stomach starts acting up big time. It's like a whole orchestra of pain in there. As he's feeling terrible, weird things start happening around him. Objects start moving by themselves, and then, all the tables and chairs slide back like someone pushed them. Strange, right? Well, at least his tummy ache is gone. But before he can even take a breather, the shop owner kicks him out for messing up the place. Later on, Sok-han heads back to his tiny, messy apartment and plops down on his mattress, lighting up a cigarette. Just when he goes to grab his lighter, it zooms straight into his hand, giving him a bit of a shock. Before he can really process what just happened, his phone rings. It's his daughter, letting him know about her mother's passing. He quickly throws on an old suit and rushes to the funeral. When he walks past Rumi, he doesn't even recognize her. Awkward, right? They barely get a chance to talk because things take a crazy turn. President Min, the big shot from Tae-san, crashes the funeral with his tough guys. Rumi calls him out, saying they shouldn't be there, that they'll settle things in court. But Min plays the sympathy card, saying they aren't to blame for her mom's accident. Rumi's furious and tries to kick them out, but things are about to escalate when her lawyer steps in, telling Min they'll settle this the legal way. Before depart, Min tries to offer Rumi some condolence money, but she refuses. The neighbors rally around her for support. Meanwhile, Jung-hyun introduces himself to Sok-han and shows him the havoc caused by the thugs in the neighborhood. When they reach Rumi's wrecked restaurant, Sok-han feels a pang of sadness, but he stays out of the conversation, accusing Jung-hyun of having ulterior motives with Rumi before he leaves. As he heads home, he can't shake off the memory of Rumi's cold look. Frustrated, he makes an angry gesture with his hand, and suddenly, a heap of trash gets thrown back as if he pushed it. That's when he recalls the weird thing with the lighter and rushes back home. Testing his theory, he practices with the lighter and discovers he has telekinetic powers. Soon enough, he's moving every object on the floor at once. Afterward, Sok-han pays a visit to his colleague at the bank, inquiring about the earning potential of illusionists. His coworker mentions a nightclub nearby where performers can rake in up to $1 million a night. Meanwhile, the next morning, after laying her mom to rest at the cemetery, Rumi returns to the shopping arcade with her dad and friends. The situation is dire as thugs are causing chaos, vandalizing shops, and creating havoc. Jung-hyun tries to reassure everyone, promising to keep pressing the case with the prosecutor, but many fear the construction company will buy their way through the law. Amidst discussions on protecting the area, Mr. Kim and his wife suggest a more aggressive approach, even considering using Molotov bombs like they've seen other rebels do. They argue that the thugs have been violent, so they should fight back. But Jung-hyun disagrees, thinking it would only worsen their image in the eyes of the public. Sok-han jumps into the heated conversation, suggesting they all quit and find safer jobs. He even offers to help Rumi, suggesting she consider going to college. This doesn't sit well with the neighbors, and they lash out at him. Rumi, angered by his attitude, kicks him out. In the evening, Sok-han heads to the nightclub and showcases his powers to the owner, who's impressed and immediately hires him as a performer. Things are looking up for Sok-han's career prospects. The next day, Rumi and Junghyun meet with the prosecutor's supervisor, but it's a tough meeting. The autopsy report isn't enough to prove anything. It only shows a bruise, which could have happened from a fall. Their other evidence, a security camera footage from a nearby car, turns out to be useless. The owner claimed it was fake after getting bought out by Tae-san. After lunch, Junghyun insists on helping Rumi retrieve her van, despite having other pressing matters to attend to. Rumi arrives back in the neighborhood and brushes off Sok-han, who's been waiting for her after many unanswered calls. He insists on a private chat, hoping to convince her to live with him and attend college, claiming he's earned enough to support her. To prove his point, he demonstrates some magic tricks with his tie and makes objects in the room float using his powers. But Rumi remains skeptical, dismissing them as mere parlor tricks. Her frustration boils over, and she accuses Sok-han of irresponsibility, blaming him for wasting time on magic instead of facing reality. She points out how he's repeating the same behavior as when he left her at age 10. Sok-han tries to explain that he divorced his wife to protect both Rumi and himself from the debts left behind by his father. However, Rumi is adamant, recalling how he pretended not to see her the day he left. Emotionally overwhelmed, she lashes out, finding it disgusting that he's trying to play the role of a father figure after being absent for so long, and storms off in tears. As Rumi walks away, she notices Min and his men gearing up to cause trouble. Sensing danger, Sok-han decides to tail them. Back at the arcade, the shop owners catch wind of the impending threat. Mr. Kim and his wife rush off to find the police, while the others barricade the entrances. When the thugs storm in, chaos erupts. They assault the neighbors while Min's assistant captures everything on camera. In the midst of this terrifying situation, Sok-han arrives and starts using his powers. He pushes the thugs back, tossing them around and hurling objects at them. His intervention turns the tables, separating the thugs from the civilians. The thugs, now fearful, refuse to follow Min's orders to attack. Only one of them dares to step forward, and Sok-han responds by twisting his arm and making him float in front of everyone. After Mr. Kim returns with the police, both sides begin arguing and pointing fingers at each other at the precinct. The officer, fed up with the commotion, decides to watch the recording to sort things out. However, when the video shows Sok-han using his powers, the officer mistakes it for a performance. Lacking concrete evidence to make any arrests, he dismisses the entire lot. The shop owners initially show disappointment, but as they distance themselves from the precinct, their demeanor changes. Laughter and celebration break out among them. They've scored a victory against Min and his crew. With Sok-han on their side, they're filled with renewed hope, despite Rumi not looking too thrilled about having him involved so closely. As night falls, the thugs camping outside the neighborhood are startled when they witness trash floating mysteriously. Their panic intensifies when their own car starts to levitate. It's Sok-han, using his powers to build a robust barricade around the market, a shield to protect the local businesses. This sight sends the thugs running for cover. When Junghyun asks Sok-han about his newfound abilities, Sok-han speculates that they might have been bestowed upon him by his ex-wife to help him become a better father. Junghyun takes a moment to reveal a secret to Rumi. Her father's opposition to their plans wasn't because he didn't care, but because he was terrified of Rumi getting hurt. He also explains the reason behind Rumi's name, indicating an old tradition where people believe that children with noble-sounding names were safe from ghosts, shedding light on Sok-han's intentions. Meanwhile, the thugs return to Min, expressing their fear and desire to quit. However, Min is preoccupied and anxious because the company owner is displeased with the lack of progress. The next day, Rumi talks to a small TV channel, hoping to get people to support her cause. Later, she reluctantly has lunch with her dad and worries about his health because of his strange powers. Her dad insists he's okay. Meanwhile, Min and his assistant have lunch with director Hong, who can change from being nice to being really angry very quickly. They chat about food, but then something surprising happens. Director Hong brings in some tough guys who attack Min while she records it on her phone. She acts like she doesn't know these violent people and pretends she's also a victim. She's doing this so she won't get into trouble later. When they start talking about work, Hong reveals she knows about Sok-han because she's seen a video. Minute says they could easily kick out all the shop owners if it wasn't for Sok-han. Hong says it's an easy problem for her to solve. Later in the evening, a TV broadcast airs a recording showing Sok-han using his powers. An expert on the show claims Sok-han possesses special shockwave weapons gifted by North Korea. 48 hours pass, and 2 cops arrive at the barricade to arrest Sok-han. They're acting on theft accusations made by Sok-han's employers at the bank. Believing it's a simple misunderstanding that can be resolved without fuss, Sok-han agrees to go with them. But to his surprise, he's handcuffed and detained. Rumi urgently calls Junghyun for help. He assures her he's on his way but receives another call with devastating news. The prosecutor reveals that a Tae-san employee has confessed to killing Rumi's mother. It's all part of Director Hong's plan. They've paid off a desperate employee to close the murder case quickly. Now, Hong instructs Min to shut down his company and start a new one under a different name. This new company will have a contract allowing them to legally demolish the local businesses. As Sok-han is taken out of the picture, a swarm of officers, led by Min and his thugs, descends upon the market. Jung-hyun urgently calls Rumi, warning her about the imminent threat and urging her to escape. Rumi, determined to stand her ground, expresses her resolve to fight till the end before abruptly hanging up on Jung-hyun. Meanwhile, director Hong pays a visit to Sok-han at the precinct. She presents him with an offer: work for her company or face a damaging public statement declaring him a threat. She casually jokes about an impossible third option, winning the fight against her. Hong leaves him to ponder the offer, handing over her business card before departing. With the press surrounding them, the police attempt to advance against the barricade, but Rumi and her allies fend them off using Molotov bombs. However, their stand becomes futile when the police bring in an excavator, using it to dismantle the barricade. Faced with overwhelming force, Rumi and her friends have no choice but to flee. Amid the chaos, Rumi falls and discovers Mr. Kim trapped under debris. She rushes to help him just as the barricade explodes, sending them both flying. Luckily, other protesters find them and bring them inside for safety. The police manage to breach the market and encircle all the entrances, making it almost impossible for Jung-hyun to get inside to assist. He urgently contacts Rumi, who's with the other shop owners, desperately trying to secure the door. Jung-hyun advises them to escape to the roof to avoid getting arrested. All of this is broadcasted on TV, catching Sok-han's attention as he watches from custody. The officers switch off the TV when they notice him watching, prompting Sok-han to use his powers to retrieve a phone from one of the officers to see the ongoing events outside. Haunted by his past failure to protect his daughter, Sok-han resolves not to let history repeat itself. Determined, he breaks his handcuffs and creates an opening in the cell door. Sok-han bursts out of the precinct with an explosion, confronting director Hong and unleashing his fury by wrecking her car. In a surprising turn, he discovers he can use his telekinetic powers to fly. However, his first flight ends abruptly when he collides with a building, crashing to the ground. Encouraged by a giant screen displaying the ongoing riots, Sok-han refuses to give up. He propels himself with powerful leaps, clearing the streets of cars before taking flight once more. Meanwhile, back in the neighborhood, Rumi and the others manage to reach the rooftop, except for Mr. Kim, who's left dangling from the railing by the police. They aim water cannons at him, causing him to slip and fall. Sok-han arrives just in time, rescuing Mr. Kim mid-air. He safely places Mr. Kim on the roof of a distant building before returning to help. However, his valiant efforts are interrupted when he accidentally crashes into a portable building suspended by a crane that the police are using to deploy more officers onto the roof. Sok-han crashes into the suspended box but quickly springs back, entering a nearby building through a window. Inside, he's surrounded by officers who use a fire extinguisher to obscure his vision. Despite being swarmed by a pile of cops, Sok-han's powers easily repel them. He uses furniture to smash the windows and escapes through them, prepared for more action. Meanwhile, Jung-hyun successfully reaches the roof of a neighboring building and sets up a staircase to bridge the gap between the roofs for his friends. However, Rumi gets caught by the cops in the suspended box. Another group of officers arrives via the conventional stairs and begins assaulting the shop owners until Sok-han intervenes, using his powers to push them all away, coming to the aid of Rumi and her companions. Amid the chaos, Sok-han faces another onslaught of cops, but his powers prove superior, rendering them unconscious. Jung-hyun assists the shop owners in crossing over the makeshift staircase. After dealing with the remaining officers, Sok-han utilizes his abilities to swiftly move all the neighbors to the adjacent roof. Meanwhile, the situation in the suspended box grows dire as Min instructs the cops to remain and arrest everyone despite the instability. Suddenly, the crane strikes a building accidentally, causing one of the box suspenders to break, leaving an officer hanging precariously. Rumi, witnessing the perilous situation, initially attempts to help the officer alone. Soon, others join her, but as the suspended box tilts, Rumi's father arrives just in time. Using his powers, he strains to bring the box to the roof. Amidst the chaos, Rumi loses her balance and starts to fall, but Sok-han takes flight without hesitation, rescuing her just before she hits the ground. Sok-han, after expressing his apologies to Rumi, leaves her in the care of Jung-hyun and flies off to confront Min. In a surprising turn, Sok-han informs Min that they've emerged victorious. Despite delivering a punch, Sok-han offers no resistance and willingly turns himself into the police, who promptly take him into custody. 4 years later, Sok-han is released from prison and reunited with Jung-hyun, who shares that he's engaged to Rumi. Passing by the site of Rumi's old restaurant, they discover an empty plot. Tae-san's project turned out unprofitable, leading to construction delays. As night falls, they arrive at a new restaurant where their old friends gather for dinner, warmly welcoming Sok-han back into their midst. To his surprise, his daughter is also present. He learns that this is Rumi's new venture. At her request, Sa Khan uses his powers to help serve beer mugs, noticing the restaurant is named Superpower Chicken. And that's a wrap on our movie. Thanks for tuning in, everyone.